Hey, how you guys doing? Everybody that's in the chat or that's here in the stream so far. How's your weekend going? Give me 1 minute. I got a couple things I'm gonna grab real quick, and I'll be right back. All right. Sorry about that. Appreciate you guys tuning in on a Saturday night. Just I had a few things to do today, but I decided, you know, I've been thinking a lot about this topic because of some interaction I've had in my past debates here over the last few weeks. And so, what I want to do is I want to present my screen here. Let's see. Maybe, maybe that works. There we go. All right. So, this is a debate I did with Tom Jump. Let's make sure you guys can see that. It looks like you can. On the definition of atheism. All right. Now, in it, um, I mentioned the LGBTQ plus just in passing. So let me just real quick. Let me make sure my volume's up. And let me know in the chat if you cannot hear this. Let's see here. My laptop's moving pretty slow because I got like 4 programs running. So just bear with me here. Okay, that's all the way up. What about this? Appreciate you guys joining me again. This was an interesting debate with Tom. I think that we worked through a lot of issues in this debate, and while I think that obviously there are some things that I could have worked on myself. I think that it turned out really well. But I would say that I just seen in the comments. That's what I thought. I thought this was down. But I did just see in the comments, Nate Brody said, I'd love to talk to CC. Anytime, Nate. Get You can get in touch with me through Dragnot or just send me an email. Drag's got my information. I'm gonna go ahead and play this now, and we'll see why this is a point.
We need.
Come on, don't do that to me. Sorry, you guys having some technical difficulties here. Let's see. Like I say, I'm running like 4 programs right now at the same time, so uh, let's see. Well, I guess I could exit out of this one. Well, I'm going to need that one. All right, so let me go to this one first then, I guess. What I want to do tonight is I have 2 debates that I've had recently where I've had people comment, and on this one specifically, the Tom Jump debate, I had someone in the comments mad that I mentioned the LGBTQ community. They didn't like that I even mentioned it. And they try to turn it into something where I was against the LGBTQ community, and as you will see, it
Need
literally
a
is a
way
non
to
sequitur.
distinguish between the. Well, let me ask you this first. What is natural? What give me a definition of
I
nature.
don't know. I have no idea. There's no
You don't know.
consensus definition.
Wow. So move my spot. Sorry, you guys, about the technical difficulties here. Maybe I should just tell you because this isn't working, and you can look it up yourself. So I'm just going to tell you what it says. Okay, so in this debate, I mentioned that
This is genuinely what I believe. This is what I
think,
actually hold to as a.
sorry, I think that the LGBTQ plus community, I think that their methods are what the atheist community's methods are. Let's see who's this going to play.
Because
Well,
what
I would
here?
say
Let
that.
me lay out why I think
Okay, here we
that
go.
people
Check this out.
use this, and then you can tell me where I'm wrong. Like people like the American Atheist and Atheist Experience and people like that. I believe that they use it because they're pretty far on the left, and I believe that they see like LGBTQ plus two and the rest of them as taking small numbers of people, including as many as you can to make a bigger group. So if you're just saying nope, we say God doesn't exist, then you're going to be a much smaller group. But if you're open to, well, we're not saying God doesn't exist, we're saying we don't have any reason to believe in it, then you're allowing in agnostics, Christian fideists, and other people into that group that say, yeah, I agree with that claim.
So all I pointed out there was that in the same way the LGBTQ plus community uses that, they use the model to take all these small segmented groups and put them all under one category or community. It increases their size in numbers and their strength in numbers. And Tom, right after I said that, he says, I agree with you. That's what they're doing. Um, I applied that to the way atheists are using. Um, I applied that the way that, hey, Andrew, I see you in the chat there. I applied that the way that atheists use the definition of atheism that Tom uses by saying, I think people use the definition of lack belief or not taking a position and just saying there is no evidence for theism in order to garner more members, because just making the claim God doesn't exist kind of excludes a lot of people. So what I want to do here is I want to scroll down and look at some of the. I want to look at one of the comments specifically. Um, let's see. While I'm doing that, what's up, Andrew? I don't know. I have no idea. I'm bisexual myself, but I don't have any experience with other communities. Yeah, I would agree. Stephen Cray has pointed this out. Okay, so Steve's pointed that out. Apparently, he hates the LGBTQ community as well, because I'm going to show you right here. I had somebody named Peter Wetzner, maybe, says CC loses any claims to serious consideration when he goes out of his way to make a cheap anti-LGBTQ crack. He shows himself to be an ideologue who is looking for philosophical justification for a position he already holds rather than looking to increase his understanding. Now, keep in mind, the only claim I made was that the atheist who used the term in the way that Tom does is using this model in order to try and gain followers the way, or gain inclusivity the way the LGBTQ community does. Now, Brian Stevens promptly says, I'm hoping CC isn't anti LGBT. What cracks did he make? You see, he didn't recognize any cracks either. Somebody else says, Peter is just another radical SJW ideologue upset that CC doesn't openly support LGBT lifestyle. Liberals will call anyone a bigot if they don't agree or confirm. Um, I hate to say that's true, but a lot of times it is the case. Also, and then this, let's see, Mr. JT Fang 2 says, he says, movie theory chill. Besides definition of a bigot, at least via Google search, might be a better one somewhere. Maybe he meant somewhere else. A person who is intolerant toward those holding different opinions. I don't believe that I did that at all. And then I said, Peter, I didn't make an LGBTQ crack. I merely referenced the group to draw a comparison to a model that the atheist group I mentioned were copying. You probably only thought it was a crack because you were soft and easily triggered. So I said that in order to tell him, hey, listen, it seems like you're being sensitive here. So this person that was taken up for him, though, and the other reason why I wanted to do this live stream was because how do we handle these things? And I want to show you how I handled it in this conversation, and I think that it's very telling. And I'm going to show you another video where I handled it in the exact same way. If you look at, let's see, if you look at what he said next, he says, Peter, I didn't make an LGBT crack, I merely referenced. He's just quoting me, and he says, that is truly unfortunate comment. I suggest you rethink it. Whoever this guy is taking up for him. And I said, I suggest you rethink his initial accusation first. And then, because he's the one laying claims here. He says, at Converse Contender, I thought you took a really cheap shot there too. I mean, Andrew, I don't think you're on my side at all in a lot of these issues, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that can be considered a cheap shot. Um, Andrew says, yeah, I don't think that person's criticism was fair. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. And then my response was, let's see. I said the specific two groups that I mentioned were using it using it that way, and Tom agreed with me. Also, I said in the debate, if there are Christian atheists, you might want to consider how the experts use the term. And then here's the very telling part, is the last few comments. This person says, Converse, was there something that made you think that Tom agreeing with you is significant to me? Experts use the term, because I pointed out that Tom agreed with me. Whenever I said that, he said, yeah, I think atheists do use that. It wasn't showing that part. Let's see. So he says, do you think that Tom agreeing with you is significant to me? Experts use the term in many different ways, which is why smart people specify how they are using a term. Are you still struggling with that fact? Now, they also said, oh, and if you said in a debate that there are Christian atheists, I would ask you, how you were defining both terms. You could be confused, or could be referring to the 1,000 or so participants in the clergy project, for example, who are practicing and living as Christians, but that are atheist experts don't dictate correct usages. There is no such authority in the English language. I don't want to get off on a tangent about the debate. Just watch the debate and you can tell. I said to him, yeah, because you're mad at me for not mentioning the LGBTQ plus, and yet you aren't mad that Tom agreed with me. Sounds biased. Also, I'm offended that you and Peter didn't put a plus after your LGBTQ. That's not very inclusive. Are the lesbians, gays, bis, trans, and queer more important than the other less known groups like Two Spirited? Oh, and I'm still waiting on the explanation of how I took a shot. So they don't even mention it. And then because I said I was offended that he didn't use the plus, he ends up saying, nope, not in any way am I mad at you or Tom. Just vaguely amused. I wasn't impressed with Tom in this debate either. And I said, I'll take your concerns in consideration. So they were offended and being sensitive. And then when I pointed out I was offended just that they didn't use the plus, that they were implying those other groups were more important, they he instantly was like, "Oh no, I'm not mad. I was just amused with it." Like, so my point with this is being that is the way to handle this thing. You don't handle it in the way where you just go, "Well, you're an idiot," and just do the keyboard warrior thing. If you know a person's worldview or like their beliefs, you can use them in your favor. The way I did there, I knew that there was something I had heard somebody in the past to LGBTQ plus community supporters arguing because one wasn't using the plus, and one they were saying, "What about two-spirited people and trans-able people and all this?" So appreciate it, Andrew. He says your criticism was completely fair. I thought so, but I wanted to point out another thing here. In my debate with Brenda,
but I actually
let's see, it's not at the right spot again. I don't know why it keeps jumping forward like that, but so when I debated Brenda, who is a transgender person, I think male to female, Brenda's, we didn't actually mention transgender one time in that entire debate. I don't think. In fact, I didn't even put. I could have got more views by saying something like my debate with atheist transgender or something like that. If I put it in the title, I didn't even mention it. In fact, watching this debate, you would probably not even know. So, but what I did want to point out though, is we got into a discussion about politics in the middle of this discussion. And while we were talking politics, what Brenda said, she was talking about Dinesh D'Souza. Let's see if I'm on the right spot.
So can you prove that it was because of the film that was made? So you're basically advancing.
probably will not like, even though he's an Indian.
Okay, so I mentioned
and
Dinesh
from another
D'Souza
country,
here.
and because he's.
I don't like him because he's a felon.
Okay, so
That's why.
So Brenda says, I said you probably wouldn't like Dinesh D'Souza because he's conservative, and Brenda says, no, I don't like him because he's a felon. So what at this point, what am I going to do? Say, that's a biased stance. So what I did was I turned it around, and you'll see right here what I did was instead of being a conservative guy who looks like Dinesh D'Souza, which is a minority, I said, oh, so we shouldn't trust felons, and I'll play this. But Brenda says, no, we shouldn't. And then I say, well, let's say I ran into a guy on the street named Deshaun, and I gave him a black name purposely, on purpose. And I say, well, let's say I ran into a guy named Deshaun, okay? And he was a felon, but otherwise he seemed like a good person. Then Brenda retracts the statement and says, oh, no, wait, no, not in all circumstances. Yeah, you're right. But I did that on purpose, and I think it worked. I'll let you listen.
That's partly why. He's a felon.
So you don't.
He's a felon and a serial adulterer, and I think a con artist.
So you don't think that? So you think that felons should just not be liked? What about people who?
I think that's a good reason. Well, the biggest reason I don't like him is because I think he is, at the very least, a narcissist, probably a sociopath, and he's a grifter. He's a grifter and a con artist and a felon.
So number one, I would say I don't agree with you because if I met some guy named Deshaun on the street who just said, "Yeah, I got a felony because I had this firearm on me and I shouldn't have," but
Sure. Other things being equal, if somebody's character is such that I would be willing to set that aside. But
okay,
I don't.
Now with that aside,
I don't think that he has anything even remotely like
I know you don't.
character. I think he.
Okay, so Brenda's initial comments were that Dinesh D'Souza is a felon, so that's the reason I wouldn't trust him. And then there are other things, of course. But then when I mentioned, well, what if I ran into a guy named Deshaun on the street? Let's say, for an example, and he said, "Man, look, all I did was I had a firearm on me. Yeah, I've got a felony, but I said, so I shouldn't trust the guy." And Brenda's like, "Well, all things held equal, yeah, you can trust that guy. I'm not, I wouldn't trust him for other reasons." Now we move on. So what my point is with this whole thing is, when I'm talking to someone, like for example, I used to hang out with a group of black nationalists a lot, and they had their views, and I couldn't just come to them with, a scholar who was, a white guy and say, "Well, look what the scholar says. You're wrong." They would go, "It's the white man's stuff, man. I'm not buying that." You see, but if I would come to them and if they were to say something like, you know, black people are superior to white people or something like that, and I were to come up and say, "No, I agree more with Bob Marley when he said, until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes, there's going to be war." And then they go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying there. Yeah, yeah. Now I do agree with that." And I'll be like, "Okay, but you see, you have to bring it to someone in their own, um, in their own way. Like you have to understand their position, and you have to understand who different people see as authority. You can't just bring anybody as an authority to a conversation. And it's a shame that we can't just say this guy's credentialed, he's a scholar, and then people accept the scholarship. But honestly, this is what I'm doing in these videos. For example, with the video where I was with debating Tom, and the person wanted to be offended over nothing. Then what my response was, "Well, I'm offended you left off the plus." So um, I think that is a good practice because what I'm doing is I'm assuming their worldview and I am using it to my advantage. In the same way with Brenda, what I did was if you say Dinesh D'Souza is a felon so you can't trust him, then maybe we can't trust my buddy Deshaun who got a felony. That's an actual person. It's a friend of mine who got a felony for carrying a gun. And because I mentioned the term or the name Deshaun, I think it kind of put it more in perspective for Brenda. So, um, and again, like I say, with the black nationalists I used to hang out with. Now, if you were to go to the black Hebrew Israelites, who I later had an affiliation with, they wouldn't have accepted Bob Marley. And this is a good point because they wouldn't have accepted Bob Marley as an authority the way a typical black nationalist might. The black Hebrew Israelite goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. Bob Marley's dad was a white man named Robert Marley who was in the military and had a baby with Bob's mom." So, because the black Hebrew Israelites say the genes are passed on through the father, and because his father was white, we can't trust anything that white man says. Bob Marley is white to them. So, you see, that's what I mean by um, you got to be careful with the sources, and you got to know who the authorities are to different groups, or else you're just going to be spinning your wheels, and there's really no way to break through the noise. Um, what's up to everybody in the chat? Looks like Travis Lee agrees with me. I got some spam calling me right now. Should I tell him who that is? Let's see. Performance Poo says, "I listened to that whole Brenda talk the other day. He's absolutely insane." Okay. Andrew, whether or not he's a felon has no bearing on the accuracy of Dinesh D'Souza's perspectives. I'm not a fan of D'Souza because of his arguments, not his personal life or who he is as a person. Yeah, and I actually went through some of that and said, "Hey, look, Dinesh D'Souza has a fair case. He let two of his friends borrow $10,000 apiece to contribute to an old college friend of his who's running for a local office. Okay, he had just made a movie about how Obama is, I don't want to say bad, but how Obama's not a great person. Okay, and he's the president of the United States now. So he contributes too much and over exceeds the campaign finance limit by paying back to friends, and he gets thrown in a penitentiary for that. Now, keep in mind, nobody has been thrown in prison for what he did. Not only that, there was a guy right before him who was another East Indian like him, and he brings this up, who had contributed way more than him and was a multiple offender. and still didn't serve any time. So my argument with Brenda was it wasn't, even though he is a felon technically, you could even argue that he didn't even deserve that. So, but anyway, that's besides the point. Hey, Tony Designs, how you doing, buddy? Hate that you just came in because you missed a lot. Let's see. I'm old and gay as gay can be. I'm an authority. Brenda, what is this? Brenda, so what I was pointing out was, wait a second. What on earth are you talking about? All right, so what I pointed out was that in my debate with Tom Jump, I mentioned LGBTQ plus, right? I said that group uses smaller fractions of people and puts them all into a group to expand to make the group larger and more inclusive. So, because there's strength in numbers, and I said that's what Tom and other people like him are doing in the when they define the term atheism as something like either a lack of belief or, in Tom's case, just saying there's no evidence for God, but I don't make a positive case that there is no God. Because if you say the theist says there is a God and the atheist says there is no God, then you limit a lot of people out of that, like agnostics and other people. And someone in the comments tried to say that I was making a crack against the LGBTQ community because I merely mentioned them. And I was pointing out that what my defense was is I said, well, when you said LGBTQ, you left off the plus. Are you implying that the first few letters are more important than the other less known people, like two-spirited people? And they immediately go, no. I'm not mad at you or anything. Like they immediately kind of stepped off of that argument. And then I was pointing out in our debate when you said Dinesh D'Souza was a felon, and so you thought he was a bad person for that. I pointed out to you that, well, what about I run into a guy on the street named Deshaun, and he's a felon because he carried a gun in the wrong place. There's nothing wrong with that. And you admitted, yeah, that's true. Deshaun, I guess he wouldn't be a bad person just because he has a felony. There are other problems now that you have with Dinesh, and you went into those. So I guess what I was pointing out is you can't just go into an argument and say, well, you're an idiot for what you believe. You need to understand the other side. And you need to understand who the authorities are on the other side. Because if I were to come to you and say, yeah, well, Trump says this, then you're going to be like, so? Trump's an idiot. I don't care about what he says. He's not an authority. Which to me either, because I didn't vote for Trump or I've never voted for any Republican. So I'm not saying, I'm just pointing out that he wouldn't be an authority to bring up around you. Let's see. Tony says, I'm slightly unclear as to what we're talking about. Maybe that cleared it up because that was an older comment. Brenda says, I'm not, okay, she's responded to somebody else. She's agreeing to it. My email is out there. Did a good video on the whole situation. So who is TMM? I'm not sure who that is. They did a good video on the whole situation. I'd like to check that out. I'm definitely interested. Here's my thing, okay? And I'm thinking I might have heard someone say this before, so I don't think it's original to me. If I have to take a night class in order to communicate with you, we're probably just not going to be communicating. If I have to, learn a lot of things in order to even have a conversation, I mean, maybe I'd be willing to do it if I had a best friend, that I had to do that with, but just somebody online, I don't think so. Now, Brenda and I had a cordial conversation, and we didn't even bring up transgender one time. I don't believe in the entire thing. And as I said at the beginning, I could have easily have put in the title of that video, me versus transgender atheist, and got clickbait, more views. I didn't even mention it because I didn't think that it was pertinent. And so what I'm pointing out with that is a lot of times it doesn't even need to be mentioned. Sometimes it may, but like I say, I just don't want to have to take a night class in order to communicate with anybody. Tony says, yes, sorry, just realized you were streaming, didn't get notification. can make the positive case that God people believe in does not exist. Okay, Brenda, maybe we'll have a conversation about that. Well, I don't agree with your analogy, but I also don't see it as an insult. Okay, good, Tony. I mean, it wasn't an insult, obviously. We use GRSM now anyway, fewer letters. GRSM. What is that, Tony? I've actually haven't heard of that. So, um, I'm guessing the G's gay, but I don't know the other ones. Or no, maybe that's gender. I don't know, gender something. Um, I guess the S might stand for cis. I don't know. But Brenda says, I think Dinesh is a bad person because he is a liar, a grifter, an adulterer, a felon, and an a-hole. Tony says, gender, romantic, and sexual minorities. Yeah, it hadn't really made any way in the in the mainstream though. I see, because I've never heard of it. And somebody says, "What is GRSM?" Um, let's see. I thought it went well. I think it did, Brenda. Um, let's see. Well, once people define what God they believe in, then it can be refuted or proven. So I guess I don't want to have like a 2 hour stream or nothing. I just wanted to point out that I've been thinking about these things because they keep popping up, and whenever I seen the comments on the debate where I merely mentioned LGBTQ and people all of a sudden got super offended that I even mentioned them and said I was taking a shot at them. That's obviously the people in the chat that are LGBTQ are disagreeing with that completely because they got to hear the context there. And I don't know who those people were, but I guess one of the takeaways is we don't need to be so sensitive a lot of times. I mean, there is room for sensitivity, sure, but um, merely bringing up your group doesn't constitute taking a shot at your group. You know how many times I've heard people say that Christians are morons or they are delusional or theist or stupid or, ignorant. It does. I mean, it's like it doesn't even phase me at all. In fact, I go in some groups, and Tony and some of these other guys will vouch for me. Um, I go in some of these atheist hangouts, and I'll troll a little bit. I'll be saying, what? Like they'll make some point, and I'll be like, that is super incoherent. Like that doesn't even make sense. And the funny thing is, sometimes they'll start getting mad. Some atheists don't. Like Tom Jump's a pretty good sport. We had a debate and we disagreed and we argued and stuff. But he came into me and him have had discussions offline where we're cool. Like there's no beef. And sometimes I'll still go in and troll him a little bit and just be like, oh, that doesn't make any sense, Tom, or whatever. Like sometimes on Twitter, I believe the other day, Capturing Christianity put up a syllogism, and Tom made like a parallel syllogism, and then I made a third one, and they all like linked up. And Tom takes stuff like that well. So I just want to point out that sometimes we don't need to be so sensitive. And second of all, maybe we shouldn't expect people to take a night class to communicate with us, or to what I mean. We shouldn't expect people to have that to study in order to communicate with us without us feeling like they're trying to purposely hurt our feelings. I know some people are, so I don't want to say that nobody's doing that. There are some people out there that are honestly trying to hurt people's feelings, and I'm not engaged with that. I'm not saying that, you know, I'm not saying anything about the group at all. I might bring them up like I did, but I'm not saying anything about it. Tony says in the Urban Dictionary, he gives a link. Andrew says I haven't really heard of it either. Um, Brenda, TMM is the Messianic Maniac. I don't know. I've never heard of that person. Um, What's Messianic Maniac? That's what I'm saying. What's up, Coon? YouTube channel. Coon, the alphabet community deserves to get criticized as well. That's true. Everybody deserves criticism. We don't look at textual criticism of the Bible and go, "Why are they criticizing our Bible?" I guess some people do, but I'd say the majority of people go, "It's interesting," but I don't draw all their conclusions a lot of times. Tony says, Converse contender, we've recently had more enlightened members of the atheist community make videos saying being religious is not mental illness. Yeah, that statement in itself is just problematic. And it actually reminds me of Brenda and I in our debate. So Brenda is transgender, and in the debate, I bring up Rachel Dolezal, which is a person who's some people say is trans race. So it's a girl who appears to be a mixed girl. She has a mixed child and a black husband, but when people found she's in the NAACP, when people found her pictures or I guess her friends from childhood or somebody brought it up from when she was little, she looked like Marsha Brady, and her family looks like the Brady Bunch. But now she looks like a mixed girl. So I guess she does a lot of tanning and she like perms or fraids her hair or whatever, which I don't have a problem with. But it reminds me of whenever I mentioned that, Brenda said, "Well, yeah, well she's mentally ill," and I thought, "Whoa, Brenda," because there's people that will say that about you. So like you got to be careful because they'll say, "Oh, you're transgender." Well, she is transracial. Like you got to be careful because this is my whole point is there's a lot of contradictions that go into it. It's like we need to be sensitive of nobody's better than anybody. But let's start LGBTQ with L. Okay? It's like, well, hold on. Are they better? And I get it. You got to start somewhere. But I think for example, there's a lot of women's groups that don't want transgenders allowed in the group. They're just like, no, 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 no. We are a women's group, biological women, and these people, a lot of them are atheists, and they support the LGBT community, but they're like, no, no, this is our women's group. You don't understand. We, you can't have a baby. You can't do the things we do. We want our group to ourselves. Okay, and it's like, you know, what are you gonna do? A lot of them um, are secular humanists, and they still have that view. It's not just religious people. There's a lot of that going on because there's opposing views, obviously. So my point here isn't to like make some big thing out of this. I just wanted to bring some people in, get their opinions, and show them some of the scenes from the other debates, and find out what you guys thought. Um, Tony says, including a psychologist, Shannon Q. I don't know what that. I don't know what that stood for. I don't know what that meant. Andrew says he does make good videos. Oh, you must be talking about the Messiah guy, whatever. Brenda, I have no idea what it means. Something personal to him, I guess. I don't think that it's hard to figure out how to talk to LGBTQ plus folks. Okay, so I'm not saying it is, but some people can make it that way. As I pointed out, I merely mentioned the term and drew a parallel to the term atheism, and I had people in the comment section saying, um, "What's wrong with you? You're taking shots at LGBTQ." Coon says, "I recommend not saying my name out loud, or you'll get banned." Oh, is that true? Let's see. Performance is laughing. Shannon Q did that video. Is that the video on LGBTQ plus or whatever? I would check that out. Andrew says, "Yeah, the whole religion is mental illness comment is just shallow and low." I agree. I can't. I mean, you got to be pretty low to. to go to the mental illness thing, and I'm glad there's a lot of um, kind of updates happening in the atheist community because I think they're well needed and well, like for example, there are some uh, updates that is needed in religious uh, communities. I'll go ahead and be the first to admit that. And Andrew T, I mean, technically, from a biological perspective, we're all transracial. I get what you mean by that, but not strictly in the sense that we mean it. Shannon just carries weight because she's a psychologist and gave a nuanced explanation. Andrews, I'm so mixed, it's hard to list them all. Choctaw, Chinese, African, Ashkenazi Jew, etc. Chirps are cancer. Shannon carries weight. You know, I'd like to have a conversation with Shannon one day. Maybe that'll happen. Um, I should have said haram above. I think pretty cool. Whatever called. So I guess to kind of wrap this up, what do you guys think about sensitivity? Because I understand like people are going to be sensitive, and um, there there aren't a lot of ways to discuss important topics with sensitive people. But in in order for us to have a productive conversation, like let me give you an example. So I started listening to Dragnet, right? And I find him pretty interesting. There was a he had a discussion where he was reviewing uh, I think it was G Man talking to a black Hebrew Israelite, and it was like a lot of the things he was saying. Drag was just like he was just shaking his head because the guy was bringing in race for everything, and that was a pretty good stream because um, it was interesting to see his perspective on that, and so and he kind of pointed out something like this guy's being ultra sensitive to like when people are so sensitive that they look in terms and make fallacies like on etymology and things like that. Like there's an etymological fallacy and like I remember watching Joe Rogan. On one episode he was talking about this, and he said, "Yeah," and they'll say things like the library. The prefix to the library is lie. Like just make up anything. And but anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. And is there any way around this? Like, are we? Is there a? This wasn't really a planned thing, you know. I was just thinking about it, and a lot of times I like to just get my thoughts out and say, "What do you guys think?" Here's a few things I've been thinking about. I don't have it nailed down. I'm not some genius, and I figured it all out. But I seriously think there's something to that, though. Um, the sentiment that you shouldn't have to take a class to communicate with somebody. You also shouldn't have to necessarily keep up with the current terminologies, and and people should be able to have conversations and see through some of the madness. You know, sometimes I'll have an atheist and I'll be pointing out something God did in the Bible, and then they'll go, "Hold on, that is ridiculous that you believe that." And then they'll try and make it some moral issue and pull on heartstrings, and I'll go, "Bro, first of all, like, why would you even take it there? Let's just stay in the topic. Don't try to get off into the view's immoral, whether you think it is or not. Let's stick to the topic and see if it logically makes sense. And then you can dismiss it hand wavingly if you want to. And I guess the last thing I'll say is I've got praise debating dry apologist Caleb Cumberland on my channel Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be hosting. I was going to have a discussion with Skylar Fiction Tuesday night, I think we're gonna have to move that unless we can do it later that night because I forgot I have a I'm moderating on Modern Day Debate a discussion that night. I don't remember what it was on, so I'm gonna have to check and see. Um, but I'm gonna be moderating that night, and then Wednesday I think Skylar was booked with I don't know. I think he was on Tom Jump's program on Wednesday night, so that'll be interesting. I might check that out. Brenda says that's cool. I think you should have a conversation with Shannon Q. That sounds good to me. I definitely uh, would want to. I've seen some things out of her that I liked, and then I've seen some things out of her that I didn't care for. In fact, she's friends with Paul Agia. If you guys know him, he I don't know anything about him, but he put out a moral challenge to Christians, which I answered on my YouTube channel, and then he tried to make it out like it wasn't a direct answer. So I got my friend Ask Yourself, who is another atheist, who's really technical, and you guys probably know him. And he came on and we broke it down, and he goes, "No, I agree with you." I said, "Yeah, unless he changes his wording, you got it." Like it wasn't even that difficult. I made it in like 20 minutes. Um, so maybe she can talk to him about that. He didn't concede an inch though. But I've seen some things out of her that seem kind of a little bit well, I don't want to put it that way. It seemed like she, almost like she was, some of the titles and wordings of things she put sometimes seem, um, maybe it's just clickbait, like maybe it's just to get more viewers. But anyway, since imperfection can occur by accident, we should create it by design. Leftist in a nutshell. Okay. Third wave feminism is stupid in general. It's funny, person whose name I shouldn't say on stream. I actually, when, uh, oh man, I'm blanking on David Silverman was on the Magic Sandwich Show. I went on there and I made I was the only one that got to ask a question, and I said, so he had just got through saying something like third wave feminism is ridiculous and it's a joke and blah blah blah, and I got to go in there and ask him a question, and I actually agreed with it. I told him I agree with you on third wave feminism partially. So I told him that. So I can agree with you on there, a person whose name I can't mention. Tony says, Andrew, I can't tell you how many times lately I have had to explain that race is meaningless to a geneticist. Yeah, that's interesting. Another thing I will say, though, is technically I'm a feminist. If by that you mean you believe that men and women should have equal rights, then yeah, I am. Just straight up. But if you mean by that men and women should be treated the exact same, I don't think I would qualify. Because, for example, if a man came up to me and just slapped me on the back of the head, even though I might want to turn the other cheek sometimes, I might like just punch him. I might just like knock him out or something. I mean, I shouldn't. I should be more, considerate and but like sometimes. Now, if a woman did that to me, I don't think there's a circumstance where I would punch her. I mean, it would have to be a hard thing for me, like defending myself. But anyway, you guys ready for the holidays too? That's another thing. Like Christmas is like 3 weeks away, and I know some of you guys won't be celebrating Christmas, but you'll have holidays to be involved with. Um, Maybe more towards Christmas, I'll have a stream about Christmas because I actually have some views on Christmas that and holidays in general that other people in the Christian community will not care for. I just, I personally think that it's a lie, or it's a bad thing to lie to your children and say, "Oh yeah, there's a guy that flies around the world and delivers presents and all that." I just, I'm sorry, a lot of people, a lot of Christians, you can give me flack for it. My mom, my fiance, like all the people in my life, they go, "Stop! Don't even go there." I'm like, bunnies don't lay rabbits. Easter's not about bunnies and rabbits and all that. Bunnies don't lay rabbits. Bunnies don't lay eggs. Sorry. um, they just don't. It's a fertility thing. No, no, no. Stop right there. Just forget all that. The holidays are for the kids. I'm like, all right, okay. But just remember that I said that. So Tony says, Converse Contender, as you're ending, may I drop a link to another stream folks here, including you, might want to see? Sure. That's definitely, go ahead. I don't mind when you guys do that. Great minds think alike. Andrew said, yeah, but Andrew, you know what they say about great minds? Not only do they think alike, but you only need one of them because they're thinking alike. I'm just kidding. That's something I heard a while back I thought was interesting. I believe in equal rights, but don't consider myself a feminist. That's why I pointed out, if by feminist you mean, getting back to Tom and I's conversation, equal rights to men and women, then I'm a feminist. But if you mean treating men and women the exact same, I don't consider myself one. And I think genetically editing actually has the potential to help create more equality as well. Repeal the 19th, somebody said. Andrew, check out David Ishii's channel. Yo, mom is a Christian, and she told us flat out Santa isn't real. That's pretty honest of her, and that's interesting that she did that because I get a lot of flack that I say things like that, and I don't usually make a big deal out of it. I don't tell my son that, even though I don't really play along with the whole Santa thing. You know, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. Maybe closer to Christmas, we'll have a discussion about it. I don't think that it's pagan. There's a verse in Jeremiah that a lot of people make a big deal out of, say it's pagan. It's not what they're making it out to be, um, but maybe we'll have another stream about that. I appreciate all you guys coming in and checking out the stream and getting your feedback. I don't, at the end of the day, the conversation is all that matters. You know, no matter who you're talking to, the conversation, the points, the data, the actual um, the actual facts of the matter are all that matters. So that's why I like James on his on Modern Day Debate. He always ends with keep sifting the reasonable from the unreasonable or something like that. And I think that's awesome, James. You know, that's an awesome thing to sentiment to make as your closing statement. So appreciate everybody watching, Andrew and Tony, and the other guy whose name I can't mention, and Brenda and Performance and all you guys. You guys are always in the stream, so I appreciate that. And there are a few other people, but if there's, let's see, Andrew, I can't do it from my phone, but hold on one second. I'm gonna end, but don't get off yet, cause I'm gonna mod real quick. Just hang on one second. I'm gonna make you a mod, Andrew. That in case Tony or somebody's not in the stream. Let's see. Appreciate you guys being here, and have a great weekend.